Hatep. My name is Nasud Atum Hutep Emre Atumre. I'm a student teacher at the Master Teacher Partner Battery Noon. We have what you call question and answer classes where we answer all your questions that pertain to Wu-nuwaupu, our doctrine. So if anybody got any questions, I'll try to answer questions to the best of my ability. If not, I will confer with my other fellow student teachers. If not, then I go to the Master Teacher, to get the answers. So anybody got any answers? Any questions?
Well, I guess we'll be starting off with the online questions.
Yeah.
This first question is from Rodney Smith. He says, what is death and what happens after you die?
He said, what is death?
What is death and what happens after you die?
Okay. That's an old question right there. I remember those questions from back in the day. He said, what is death and what happens to you when you die, right?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
What happens to you after you die?
Well, death is when the physical body ceases to exist. What you call living or life is what we are now in the physical form. This is why when they talk about the Quran and the Bible that Allah is the Great Spirit and you will not be able to return to heaven unless you die. So Allah can't be the all-living if he's not in the flesh. So anything that dies, right, will have to go into the, was simply supposed to go to the spiritual world. You feel what I'm saying? What they call heaven according to the religious doctrine. You know what I'm saying? But in our culture, based on actual fact, death to Nogaro or Nubians or Negroids, right, of ancient Africa or Africa, right, death is nothing but the doorway to a higher life for us, because when we die, the physical life, we actually go on into another state of existence. You feel what I'm saying? That's why they said YOLO, you only live once, does not apply to us. It applies to the Caucasian race because they lost their ability to go to the other side, because when they went to the Caucasus Mountains, they would sleep with homo canines and lost their ability to actually transcend to the other side. This is why they said heaven is on earth. So they live their life to the fullest and do all type of extreme acts. You feel what I'm saying? So when they die, their conscious self has about, I say, 48 or 72 hours. I think the Master Teacher said the spirit resides in the body and something like that, right? Where they lose their consciousness. But you can't destroy energy, so the sixth ether will go back into the universe. You know what I'm saying? It goes back to this original state. But the conscious person that was in that sixth ether form ceased to exist at a certain amount of time. This is why they have to travel and try to get inside your body. This is that movie that was by that came out years ago called Fallen. Anybody seen that before? With Denzel Washington? Yeah. Have you seen it, my brother?
I think so.
When he was trying to curate this serial killer, and the serial killer died, but his spirit went to another person's body. But he had to touch that person. This is the same concept, but it don't have to do with touch. It has to do with how open you get. I mean, if you get angry over sex, stress, drunk, intoxicated, high, you feel me? And these beings are able to go inside you and live at a little moment of life for a second. This is what they have to keep doing in order for them to stay, existing in this plane. But what happened is their whole purpose is to make you fall, cut something so they can be able to enter into your bloodstream. So, say the question he said, what is death and what happens to us is die? This is what happens when we die. Our physical body goes back into nature, but your soul and spirit travels to the other side. You feel what I'm saying? In another state of existence. You know what I'm saying? We had a book that goes into, I think it's called Soul, Spirit, Spirit, that goes into detail about it. And we have another book called Is There Eternal Life After Death? I was trying to find it on here, but I don't even think I got it. I do, but I'm looking for the wording for it. Oh yeah, I do have it on here. So that's why in ancient Tamaray, death is not something that was really looked upon as, oh, he died and that was the end of a person's existence. Actually, the ancient Tamarayans or the ancient Egyptians rejoiced in death, meaning that when you died, they gave you such an elaborate burial not only with riches and gold sarcophagus, you hear me? And jewelry, they also, it was a 70-day preparation for your funeral. You know what I'm saying? And it was a ritual they called the open and mouth ceremony, where they actually would open your mouth, crack the jawbone, and then let the air goes inside you, because that's why it's in the Bible. It says, and God blew in man's nostril the breath of life, and he became a living soul, right? So this open mouth ceremony, which is an ancient ritual of Egypt that came way before this quote, where they open the mouth out, where they allow the air to go in and supposedly give life to that person for one moment, so they can be able to go back to the heavens. When we talk about heavens, right, we talk about Oranos, which is the Greek word for heaven. Oranos is where you find the word Orion from, you hear me? And we talk about the Orion star constellation, where they said they had came from. This is why they said, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Our kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. When you look at the heavens, you look at the three belts of Orion, and we look at on earth, you see the three pyramids of Giza, which is a representation of these three belts of Orion, which you will call later on in the religious doctrine of Christianity, the three wise men. You feel what I'm saying? Then you say Jesus Christ is what? The bright and morning star. But when you look at the bright and morning star in ancient Egypt, they was talking about Ra or Re or the sun. You feel me? And when you talk about the 12 disciples of the Messiah Jesus, inside the doctrine of Christism, you also go back to ancient Egypt. We talk about the 12 zodiacs that you find on the temple of Dendera, where they talk about the 12 beings. You feel what I'm saying? Did that answer the question?
Yes.
And also, hold up, I was trying to find another breakdown. I'll get it to it later. It was a sudden question, though, you know. You go ahead.
All right. This next question is coming from someone named Tall Willie.
You said tall what?
Tall Willie.
Oh, I thought you said tall Willie. Is it Batar Willie?
No, Tall, T-A-H, Tall Willie.
Oh, Tall Willie, I got you.
All right. He says, Hattab, in the Holy Tablets, chapter 11, tablets 14, verse 3. It talks about the 24 elders leaving the Nibiru to take human wives, and it goes on to talk about their offspring becoming evil spirits. All right, before
you go into that, I just want to hold on to the question. I want to read about, this is a book called Is the Eternal Life After Death? It's on page 22. What is physical death? The phenomena of physical death fascinates as well as frightens the human mind. Its suddenness or long suffering, its abruptness, and finally, its a lack of prejudice or discrimination. It strikes the young and the old, women, children, animals, trees, and fish alike. Yet the one it strikes lies in a peaceful silence or a frightful silence. Which is it? The effect is really upon those left behind because of the mysteries that surrounds death. All you see is a limp corpse. You touch it, but it does not move. You wonder, can it hear? Can it feel? Can it think? What happened to its liveliness? Death. Secrecy causes the living to wonder and imagine. You must realize that death is the door which takes you from one stage in life to the next stage of the higher life. And that life is just another stage in your development. And these are referred to as Job 35, 10, also chapter 10, 21 to 22, chapter 34 to 22, and Psalms 107, verse 10, and Deuteronomy 30 to 19, and 2 Samuel 22, 6, and Ruth chapter 1, verse 17, and Isaiah 25, 8. So there goes, that's the breakdown that our master teacher, Papa Brandon broke down about death.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Tall Willie's question is Hattab, in the Holy Tablets, chapter 11, tablet 14, verse 3, it talks about the 24 elders leaving the Nibiru to take human wives, and it goes on to talk about their offspring becoming evil and the punishment of these elders. It mirrors the story of the 200 fallen angels. And the question is, what is the difference between the two events aside from the two different groups? Because it seems as though they did the same thing.
What two groups are he talking about?
He's talking about when the Anunnaki came down.
Yeah.
And the 200 fallen coming down.
Those are the same species, because you got to understand that in the last couple updates.
Sorry, not the Anunnaki, he said 24 elders.
The 24 elders? But the 24 elders is not dealing with. It's dealing with different species of beings. It's not all of them were Anunnaki. Some were Anunnaki, some were from the Padandaro, some were from Hindus. You know, if you look at the chart, the 24 elders, like Rahman, he's not of those species. And Zosa and Imhotep are definitely not from the Anunnaki, they're from the Padandaro. So that was the council that was over certain things. And when you talk about two groups, or you talk about two groups of 24 elders, or you talk about two groups of species that came.
Because he said that the two events, they kind of mirror each other. So he's
two events he talk about them coming down, right?
24 elders came down from the Nibiru, he said, and took wives from the beings that were here, and the story of the 200 fallen angels coming down and taking wives.
Oh, I see what he's saying. Because in the old doctrine, we would still think that, one was seraphim, one was cherubim, but they still talk about the Anunnaki. You know what I mean? Because if you read a book called Conflict of the Gods, and if you follow up on a Patarak that's called Pasarahu Wu-nuwaupu, right? It actually goes into about the two brothers. That's really what's really talking about. The two events is that when one of them went down, this was the ones that were the followers of Enlil, which you know as the Agigi. 200 of them came down and mixed in with the daughters of men, what they wasn't supposed to. But these daughters of men they were mixing in with was the Caucasian race, as the red and ruddy race that descended from the Adam and Eve, that biblically, but we know that as known as Sakar and Titi, as Nekeba. Because when Kut, also known as Adapa or Adam, the son of no. Let me get that. Let me rephrase that.
Adapa was Enki's son.
Adapa was
Enki's son.
No, also Adapa was just a title too. Sakar was also referred to as Dapa. His father's name was Kut. This is where you get the word Kuttite from. You hear me?
Okay.
And his other name was, we know him as Atum. You hear me? He was a Drava'u. You know what I'm saying? His mother, Lilith, was from the Anuku, which you know as the Anunnaki. You feel what I'm saying?
Okay.
So what happened was when these two mixed in, they gave birth to a red and ruddy being that had red fur all over it with a darker skin. You hear me? And the darker skin resulted from the red fur being all over. But when they mixed this being in with the descendants of the Pataites of Cush, of the Cushites and the Havalaites, as the Bushmen, this is Ptah, and then you have Anath, who gave birth to who? Titi, as Eve. So when they mixed him in with her, it gave birth. This is what they were experimenting on, where they was creating this red and ruddy race, this new hybrid. Then the overseers of them, which as the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians in them, were able to, matter of fact, the Pleiadians in them were able to let their makers mix them in with Homo porcine, Homo simian, and Homo canine. You feel me?
Okay.
To create this new Adamite race, which you call the first Caucasian earthling of 6,000 years ago or 4,000 BC.
Okay.
Not the first Caucasian that actually resided on this planet that as the Fugarites, who were created 8,400 years ago, who came out of the Hindu race as an albino. You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what happened is this other Caucasian was a made being, not a created being. You feel me?
Yeah.
Because they used other beings that were, was here already, and other beings that came here and crossbred to create this new red and ruddy being. You feel me?
Okay.
So the whole thing is that when these beings came down, they mixed in with that mixture and created another hybrid, which was more carnivorous and was a flesh eater and very dangerous, at the point that they said we had to destroy them or they will consume us. This is the higher beings, talk about these beings, or these what we call the Jabarines, or they were giants in the earth in those days. You feel me? In the book of Genesis. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Chapter 6. You know what I'm saying? So what happened is another beings came down and mixed in them to try to correct the genes, but it was dealing with the same species. This is dealing with Inky in them. Because you deal with one side was Enlil and the Jabarines, then you do them with Inky with the Dengir. The Dengir will be known as the Seraphims, and the Agig will be known as the Cherubims. But when we was in the school of religion, we was always thinking, okay, the Seraphims are the good guys and the Cherubims are the bad guys. But when you look at it from Wu-nuwaup and not from a religious state of mind, we're looking at them now as you are of the same species. But one of y'all is not pure-blooded. And that will be Inky, because Inky was half Draconian and half Meldekian.
Okay.
Because he came from Alelu's family.
All right.
And they were Meldekians.
Okay.
So when they talk about these two events, they talk about the time they came down and were mixed in with the daughters of man. You feel what I'm saying?
Okay, the beings that came down and mixed in with those Tamils, was that the Pleiadians?
The Pleiadians? No, that was the Anunnaki. See, they were both Anunnaki.
No, the one that mixed in with the first time with the Flugarides.
No, the Pleiadians were the ones that gave Yakub the formula on how to breed a Caucasian out of the Hindu. Would you call the black man, right? You had two black men. You had one with fur and you had one with hair. The black man, the Asiatic black man was the one that came out of Bali, or what you call India. You know what I'm saying? It was originally called Sin back then. Sing. You know what I'm saying? This was the black germ, what they call it in the Nation of Islam, the black germ, and then you said for the black germ, you get the brown germ, but then you get the red germ, you feel me? So they was talking about the different times that they were crossbreeding and grafting the Caucasian race out of this Hindu. So they really was talking about an albino Hindu. This Hindu that was albino, if you go online and type in albino Hindu, you will actually see a Hindu that looked like a Scandinavian. You hear me?
You can't tell that he's in a
You know what I'm saying? You be like, wait a minute, I seen that look before. Cause you hear me? I seen that in Europe. But you don't see it in the United Kingdoms. You don't see it in France. You don't see that look in Italy. And you definitely don't see it in Portugal. You know what I'm saying? But you will see it in the Netherlands, Scandinavia, Denmark, and Amsterdam. Iceland, Finland, and so on. When you go up into the colder region, these albino Hindus couldn't deal with the sun. Because anybody know about Hindus or albinoism, right? They cannot see good in the sun, and it has a bad condition with the sun where it actually burn them. You know what I'm saying? So they had to go to areas where it's more suitable for their condition. So a lot of them start migrating out of India and made their way through Mongolia up to through Russia. Because you got to remember that these areas are all in Asia. So when we say Asiatic, it's not just dealing with the Orientals, it's dealing with other species that live inside of Asia also. You know what I'm saying? You have different species that live in Asia already. But we always, when we hear the word Asian, we always say, oh, no, we talk about the Chinese, the Japanese, but it's not just them. They're not the only Asians. So these pale Asiatic black men that were albinos migrated out of India and made their way up into the Caucasus Mountain that you know is today inside of Russia. And after a while, these so-called Fugarads, who was a mix, you know, like you said before about the Pleiadians that gave them the formula, because the Pleiadians did come down and mix in to a certain point with these beings when they made their way up to the Caucasus Mountains.
Okay, yeah.
This is albino, but not a leopard. But these Pleiadians were albinos also, or pale beings, right, who had leprosy. So when they mixed in with these albinos that was in the Indian albino that was in the Caucasus Mountain, they gave them leprosy. That's why you find in a book called 18 plus 18 plus 1, which is the mitochondrial DNA, when it talks about that, which is an infection or a bacteria. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now these descendants or hybrids, now they get created in a hybrid, you know what I'm saying, migrated out of the Caucasus Mountains, and they were known as the Khazars. And then when they migrated, they came into what you call Europe and certain parts of Germany. And then what happened is the darker seed of them were called the Sahartans, which you get from the Spaniard, you know, Khazar or Fugarads. You're saying because you had the Fugarad, then you had the Khazars. That was a different. You had two different seeds that came up, two different type of Fugarads. The Fugarads, and then you had the Khazars. You know what I'm saying? The Khazar will be the hybrid that was created from the Pleiadians mixing in with the albino Hindu. You feel me?
Did that also go for the Ashkenazim?
Ashkenazim is the Khazar. You know what I'm saying? But the darker one that came out of that, right, is the farm that had the darker hair and stuff like that. You feel what I'm saying?
But that's what I'm talking about, the Sephardim.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
The Ashkenazim, and remember they said there's two different types of Jews.
The Jews.
Sephardim and Ashkenazim, but they both come from the Fugarad genetics. You feel what I'm saying? Right. So these Khazars came out of the Caucasus Mountain and migrated in certain parts of Germany. Some went to Finland, Iceland, and up in the Netherlands, which you call Scandinavian and stuff like that. And when you look at the Scandinavians, they look like albino Hindus. And then what happened is later on, when the Moors start mixing in with them, or the Africans that came in there, they created another species of Caucasians. And also, you got to remember also that these so-called Fugarads were coming out of Europe and raping and kidnapping Africans so they can correct their, correct their leprosy and try to correct things about them.
Yeah, I remember that.
And just try to strengthen their genes up. You feel me?
Yeah. All right. Good question. All right. This next question is coming from somebody named Dante York. And he says,
yeah, go ahead.
All right. Dante York asks, He says, if extraterrestrial beings travel intergalactic and reincarnate in human form to give us information such as Wu-nuwaup, why are they helping us? And if we are to support...
Yeah, repeat that one more time. Go ahead.
He says, if extraterrestrial beings travel intergalactically and reincarnate in human form to give us information such as Wu-nuwaup, why are they helping us? And if we are supposed to make a transition out of here, where are we going? Are we going to risk?
Not everybody's going to risk. As many times that we have taught from our master, Wu-Sabat, not everybody come from the same ancestors. You hear me? The reason why certain beings are helping and working with the Nagaru, and some beings are working with the Anunnaki because they want to preserve the planet. They like, look, we'll wipe them out before we let this planet be destroyed because there's a lot of natural resources. People want to call this place home. So some other beings will say, well, I would prefer to destroy it. Some people say, no, don't destroy it. So they'll actually come together, even though they're not, my friend is my enemy. You heard that old saying before, right? So certain beings will say, look, I can't stand you. I don't like your ways. But you are means to an end. Meaning that if we work together, I can take out somebody who's much worse than you. You have no conviction on destroying life on this planet. So we'll come together, we'll take him out, and then you can go about your way and I go about my way. You feel me? So certain beings will work together. If you have read in the holy tablets, you got to remember that when some of the Riskins were evacuating the planet, a lot of them were being attacked and different star different stars systems, right? Because they were not a warrior type. Even though they're so advanced, they can actually kill you with a thought. Because these beings are able to transfigurate or transform into what you call Etherians in a more powerful state. You know what I mean? But they don't have the nature to kill like that. That's why Pop said they will prefer for you to harm them or kill them, but rather they even cause you harm. You know what I mean? So these beings were being attacked and raped by different species, which is known as the Andromedans and the Pleiadians. You know what I'm saying? Who actually befriended these Riskians, right? You know what I'm saying? Then later on turned against them. You know what I'm saying? And then took their technology and used it for themselves. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So the whole thing is that these beings will use other beings, right, to do their dirty work for them. Well, I want to say dirty work will actually fight on their behalf because they on such a higher level. This is why on Earth they created the Dengir, which is a humanoid, reptilian, mammal type being to fight on their, to fight certain things, to do for them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? But you don't understand how powerful the Nagaru actually are.
On that note, I remember the master also saying that the Andromedans are actually insectoid beings, grasshopper beings.
Yeah.
And they're one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Even the reptilians fear them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that class.
And with that, you'll finish it. I want to finish. Is everything similar to that? Any other questions that are similar to that before I pass the classes over? On the same note?
No.
So that basically was the last question in dealing with that type of subject.
Well, we got a lot of questions, so we have to see that go through.
Okay. Well, and with that, I'd like to pass the class over to my brother, Patah Asar.
Rahul family, very good seeing you all, the shadow. We'll go ahead and continue with the class. If anyone have any questions, we can continue.
All right. This question is coming from Tosap Abel. He says, what's the meaning of a sin in the Bible named after Nanar sin?
What was he asking? Say that one more time.
Was the meaning of a sin in the Bible named after Nanar sin?
Was the being sin?
He says, was the meaning of a sin, the
verb sin,
named after Nanar sin?
Teya, yes. We were told by our master teacher that every time you are saying, I'm going to stop sinning, I'm not going to sin, stop sinning, I'm going to sin, that was a sin. Every time you saying the word sin, you are enhancing the word. And as you enhance the word, you're literally chanting or calling on that demon, that deity. Every time you say, oh, that was a sin, or I'm going to stop sinning, or maybe I shouldn't sin, or, that this is called a sin, he said, you are literally chanting that particular demon, na sin, which is one of the names of God.
Yeah, ironically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this next question is coming from a brother named Mike Lowry.
Mike Lowry?
That's what he calls himself. I guess that's his online name.
Oh, okay.
He says, was the war in heaven of the book of Revelation and Genesis 6 about the fallen angels? Are they related?
Which fallen angels? He'd have to ask the question as far as specifically which, because when he said the fallen angels, it wasn't the first time or the only time angels was cast out.
You might want to explain the two wars, because some people might not be aware that there's two
Okay.
wars.
If you go to Genesis, if you go to Revelations, let's get the Biblios. Most confusing book on the planet. There's no way possible. The Baptist, Methodist, Episcopalian, Protestant, Lutheran, Catholic, Jehovah's Witness, Muslim, Satanist, and a devil worshiper and a Ku Klux Klan member can take the same book and devise different meanings from it. Yet God said, I am not the author of confusion. That's their God, though. Peace in the Lamb is truly wonderful, though, right? To be able to see that. Let's find that particular chapter where it says that there was a war in the heavens. I tell you, while my brother looks for it and we find that specific verse, I'll go ahead and start explaining the incident, because what took place before Genesis, because one thing we was explained to by our master teacher is that Genesis, the word Genesis in the Hebrew language is the word Bereshith. And the word Bereshith means to reconstruct or to rebuild or to remake. This is why the very first law that God, according to the Bible, gave to man was to be fruitful, multiply, and refill the earth. If God knew that Adam and Eve was the first people on the planet, he would not have given them a law that says to be fruitful, multiply, and refill. He would have told them to be fruitful, multiply, and fill it. So because he said to refill, there must have been people on the earth prior to that. And those people that was on the earth prior to that were destroyed, and it was time for a new cycle or a new beginning, and that beginning is your Genesis story. Those people that were prior to that particular Adamite story were your Tahites, your 4-foot tall beings, your Watusi, or your 7-foot tall beings, and then you had the 200 fallen angels, which were your Hindus, which we spoke about earlier. In the Bible, when it mentions about these particular beings, your 200 fallen angels were your Hindus were the 200 fallen angels that was cast out of the heavens onto earth. This is the war that took place where it says in the Bible, it says there was a war in heaven and Michael and his angels fought against the dragon and the dragon and his angels fought. And there was no space found for them anymore in heaven. And that old dragon called the serpent and the devil was cast out of heaven onto earth. It neither said that the devil succeeded, nor did he say he failed. It didn't say that Michael succeeded, nor did it say he failed. It says that the devil just simply didn't prevail, and he was cast out of heaven onto earth. So oftentimes we tell people, to Christians, when they think that hell is someplace you go to after you die, and we tell them, no, hell is on earth. Hell is a physical place. It's a geographic, just like heaven, is a physical place that you go to while you're alive. So we explain to them that that war that took place in the heavens, there we go. Tower text them out. In the book of Revelations, 12th chapter, this is why I'll say this. I say this each class, and I'm going to say it each class until we remember. Oftentimes we tell people, these being our question and answer class, at one time was called our newcomers class. And we tell people, the classes are free. This is end-time information. You're not going to find it nowhere else on this planet. You're not going to find it in some other bookstore. You're not going to find it at some church. You're never going to find it at a masjid or synagogue. You're only going to find it here. You will not find it at universities where they teach you nothing about the universe. You can only find the answers to the questions of the problems of the troubled world in our question and answer class. That's not my opinion. Show up one day and ask the question that you have long since wanted the answer to. Ask the question that your great-great-great-grandmother and great-great-great-grandfather wanted to know the answers to. And we have the answers by way of our master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z. York. However, having given those answers, we ask people that you not pay for the class. We don't pass around a collection plate. We say bring paper and pen to take down notes. Because the moment we tell you the answer to the question that you've asked, we also coined the statement from our master teacher when he said, don't believe me, check it out. And that applies to us also. Don't believe us, check it out. Because the moment you start believing us, then you turn us into your God. And you turn our way of life Wu-nuwaupu, you start turning it into a religion. Because now you're believing what we say. Just like Christians believe, just like Muslims believe, Jews, Hebrews, like Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe. And their entire religion, their entire way of life is based on belief. They believe Jesus died on the cross for their sins. Muslims believe he didn't. Christians believe that Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. And a Muslim will say, Lam yalid, wa lam yulad, wa lam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. That God begets not, nor is he begotten, and there's nothing likened unto him. So which one of them is right? And of course, the Christian gonna say she's right because she believe it. And undoubtedly, the Muslim gonna say he's right because he believe it. But neither one of them can even prove if Jesus ever existed. They ain't found Santa Claus yet. Yeah, he's younger than Jesus, and he ain't been able to go back far enough to find Santa Claus. And they have a geographical location. They can't find Jesus. Can't even prove he exists. So we are begging people, please bring paper and pen so you can take down the notes, so you can research it. And upon researching, which means to search again, once you research it, then you'll be able to take that which you've researched, equate it to now you know it, and now you know it, not believe it. And then when you go off to teach it, you can go off to teach it with the I know, which is the first attribute of a God. Now man has become like God. He knows, not believe. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free, not ye shall believe it. Okay, so again, please take down notes. Take down notes, because the moment I say it's in the book of Revelations, 12th chapter, 7th verse, if I say 7th chapter, 12th verse, human error creeps in, and you're going to go tell somebody, yeah, because in Revelations, 7th chapter, 12th verse, it says, you just lied. You didn't do it on purpose, but you just told wrong information. And now you want them to believe you, having just lied. So to make sure, you have to research it. No, wait a minute, it's not no 7th chapter. Oh, I see where he made a mistake. He said 7:12. It's actually 12:7. Take down your notes, family. And then please turn to your Bibles and say, whoa, that's not in my Bible, note 7. Wait a minute, where you at? We can stop before we misinform people, because this is also going worldwide. Okay, back to it. In Revelations 12th chapter, 7th verse, it says, and there was a war in heaven. Michael, and his angels fought against the dragon, Tarnush. And the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was there space found any more in the heavens. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels was cast out with him, 200 of them. In your Bible, when it mentions that particular war, those beings that was cast out of heaven resided in the land of Nod. In your Bible, and I hope I'm speaking loud enough for everyone to be able to hear. In your Bible, you have a city where you have, according to the Bible, biblical account, because this question was from a biblical question standpoint, and in the Bible, it mentions 4 people. It gives you Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. According to the Bible, Cain eliminates one of these people. He kills his brother Abel. Instantly kills his brother Abel. Having killed his brother Abel, he was a punishment given to him. There was a punishment given to Adam. There was a punishment given to Eve. There was a punishment given to Abel. Abel cried that his punishment was greater than he can bear, because God told him, I'm sorry, appreciate it. Cain cried that his penalty, his punishment was greater than he can bear. And his fear was, having been sent away from his protection in an enclosed garden. You have to question, if God created Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, Cain eliminates one of those people. And according to the Bible, Cain cried that his punishment was greater than he can bear. First of all, why was Adam and Eve in an enclosed garden? Why did they need enclosure? Why did they need protection? Protection from what? From who? From what? What? Who? No one could do him harm. And then Cain's fear was, anybody find me, they will kill me. Okay, so Adam, Eve, and Cain, the only 3 people left on the whole planet. Why was Cain afraid somebody was going to find him? Who's going to find him? It was only him, his mother, and his father. You have to know that there was people not only that Cain knew was going to kill him, because first of all, he had to have known they was killers for his fear and concern to be, niggas going to kill me. They going to kill. He didn't say they're going to welcome me home. He didn't say they're going to throw a party. He didn't say they're going to see me as another individual and everything is going to be all right. He said, wait a minute, these niggas going to kill me. I killed my brother. I'm sorry, but these are murderers. These niggas are real killers. They thugs. You follow? These are the ones he was afraid of. And according to the Bible, he was cast out of the region that they were in and dwelt eastward in the land of Nod. And it says, and there he knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. Let's back it up. Again, if it's only Adam, Eve, and Cain, the only three people on the planet according to the Bible. And Cain left their presence and dwelt eastward in the land of Nod, and there he knew his wife. That means that that woman lived in the land of Nod before Cain got there. And if it's true that man became before woman, then that woman in the land of Nod had to have a mother and a father. Why weren't they mentioned in the Bible? And why is it said that Adam was first? How do we know that one wasn't first? My point is that those beings that was in the land of Nod were the 200 fallen angels. Those were your Hindus. The Hindu religion was the very first religion on the planet. You follow? And that's when they practiced cow worship, dog worship, snake worship. They practice bestiality, lucrative sex, sex with different animals, with any animal, sex with objects, free sex. They just wild and crazy with it. They created a religion because religion, R-E-L-I-G-I-O-N. Religion means to rely on a jinn. Rely on a jinn. You follow? This is what religion. These religions were based on them relying on a jinn because they themselves were demons and they was trying to get back home. So religions were set up for them to find their way back home. It was never for us. Religion was never for us. We have, I'm saying had, been, have, now. We have a culture, wu-nuwaupu. We have our culture. But as a result of that, spell being cast placed us under the spell of klingu, or ignorance, and therefore we started believing religion. Hence, our master teacher, I came to set the whole mess straight. This whole record straight. He said that's his sole purpose, to set the record straight. Any other questions?
I know you were saying two sets of the fallen angels or whatever. In Revelation 12:4, it was it speaks of, it says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and it says, and did cast them to the earth. And this was before it mentioned the war in heaven. Would that be also another place where they were?
Right, because those when it says through a third part, that third part is of course 1/3. That third part of the stars of the heavens is symbolic of the cherubims, specifically the cherubim, because you have three classes of angelic beings. You have the seraphims, you have the cherubims, and the word cherubims come from the word karib, which means to be near or close. And the seraphim is the ones that were the, what is seraph? Was it fire? Fire. And seraphim was the fire. And then you had the thrones, or the thrones. The way our master teacher explained it, he says the word is thrones. They're also mentioned in the scriptures. And I'm going to see if I can find that also and let you know those particular ones. But those were also cast out. And that was the first time. These are the ones that, if you remember in the Bible, in the books of Genesis, which is a very, very unique verse. I remember seeing that. It's a very, very unique verse because Genesis is not explained as in depth as it should be, specifically Genesis 6th chapter, but with a little bit of patience, I'll explain that at least the first 4 or 5 verses for you all, which is very, very informative and need to know it. See if I can find that throne's location. If you read Genesis, it tells you, and I'll quote it, read it and studied it, dissected it so many times. It says, Genesis 6th chapter, now it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and went in unto them and bore children. And let's back up. Genesis 6th chapter, 1st verse. Now it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth. This is the first time they're recognizing and saying that men began to multiply in the Genesis 6th chapter, which is 10 generations after Adam. You follow? You got Adam, Eve, Cain, Abel, Seth, Enoch, Mahalalel, Methuselah, Lamech, etc., etc., etc. So all these times, 10 generations, men have been multiplying. But Genesis 6th chapter says it as if it's a first-time occurrence. Now it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth. and daughters were born unto them. That's the first time in Genesis 6 chapter, 10 generations later, they're recognizing women being born. As if women was here, there wouldn't be no men. So this must not be speaking about normal men. This must not be speaking about regular women, because the very next verse says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. Time out. If it says that the sons, because it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. It uses the word tob, which means agreeable. That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, then the sons of God must not have been men, because it would have said that the sons of men saw the daughters of men. Here's how you marry the scriptures. If you take your Bible, we was taught this by our master teacher, Dr. Malachi Z. York. In the books of Genesis, here we go, 6th chapter, 1st verse. If you go down to, it's good to be right with 2 hands. If you go down to Job, you ready for this? 1st chapter, 6th verse. It tells us that there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also. So where it says that the sons of God is referring to the angelic beings, those are titles that are given to the angels of the Most High, known as the sons of God. So where it says in Genesis 6 chapter, 1st verse, down to the 2nd verse, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were tob, or agreeable, fair, and they took them wives, all which they chose. These particular sons of God were your disagreeable ones. You know that because that very same verse, it says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were agreeable, and they took them wives, which means they raped them. There's a difference, because in the next verse you're going to see where the ones that did it didn't rape them. It says that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful or fair, agreeable, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said that my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Let's back it up. The Lord said that my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he, referring to an individual, for that he is also flesh. If you're also flesh, then you're something else other than flesh. And Jesus said, my spirit is willing, but my flesh is weak. So in this verse where it says that my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. This is referring to the age of Isa ibn Maryam, or Jesus, in the book of Revelations, where it described him in the 1st chapter as being old, as with his hair as white as lamb's wool. It tells you the texture like lamb wool, and it says as white as snow. So it tells you the color of his hair as well as the texture of his hair. So they're describing the characteristics of what Jesus looked like. Yet, however, they seem to overlook it and decide they want to give a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy and want him to be the image of God, or the Son of God, in our eyes. Yet Genesis 6 chapter tells you that these sons of God came down to earth in the land of Nod, married the children of Adam. That the sons of God came down to earth, married the children of the Adamites, and bore children. And it says the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. If you go down to the very next verse, it says, and there were giants in the earth in those days. And there were giants in the earth in those days, and after that, where? Oh. Gotcha. And there were giants in the earth. Earlier, our good brother Atum Hutep Imreye was speaking about the giants, or the Giboris, or the Giborims. And the Giborims were the giants. The word Gibori, as you saw, I wrote on the board, the word Gibori or Gibori or Giborians is where you get Jabbar from in the Arabic language. And this is where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hence was given that title by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because he was a giant. He was a Jabori. He was a giant. So he gave him that title. Again, this particular occurrence, it says there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bore children. This time, it didn't say they took them. It says they came in. Our master teacher explained to us that the agreeable beings, angelic beings, had to come down to combat what the disagreeable beings had done, having mixed in with the daughters of men, because they created mighty men. Not just a regular old nigga, not a regular man. They created a mighty man. And so to combat them, the agreeable beings had to come down, went in unto the women, and bore children, which became mighty men to combat them. Okay, we know according to even this verse, because it's also, our master teacher explained to us that if you look at that particular verse, it says there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. Well, if we search, we find a story in the Bible where it mentions David and Goliath. And according to the scriptures, Goliath was a what? Giant. Keep that in mind. We're going to come all the way back to Genesis, and then we're going to find Goliath again. Because according to our scriptures, according to their scriptures, it's funny. According to their scriptures, it says that Adam, being the first man, Noah was given the exact same task as Adam. Noah was told to be fruitful, multiply, and to refill the earth again. This is another time. Let me see if I can find that verse. Chapter 9, verse 1. Where Noah, it says, and God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. Again, Noah was given the exact same task to do what Adam did, to refill. However, Noah, making sense because there was people, tribes, villages on earth before Adam. So therefore, he could replenish. But if Adam was the only one, the first one, then how could he replenish? Same thing. That's another one of the mistakes you find in the Bible that they've written. However, in Genesis, it tells you that there was 8 people that was chosen to escape the destruction that was on the planet. You have Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And then you have Noah's wife, Naamah. And then each one of his triplet sons had a wife. So you had 4 women and 4 men that was chosen to escape the destruction of the deluge, of the flood on the planet. So again, Noah, his wife, Noah's triplet sons, and their 3 wives. 1 wife each. 8 people. Neither one of them were giants. So if everybody else on the planet was destroyed, how does Goliath pop up later? How does Goliath finally find his way back on the scene and David got to finally fight him? How does Goliath, a giant, pops up on the scene when, according to the Bible, God says that that Noah was perfect and upright in his genes. So his genetics was right. His genetics was perfect. His genetics weren't the genetics of the fallen angels. So his genetics was right. How did we get a Goliath, a giant on the earth after the flood when, according to the Bible, God said he destroyed everybody that wasn't in the genealogy of Noah? There wasn't a perfect gene. So that's another flaw that we find that they have in their scriptures and in their information. Okay. You have another question?
Yes, this question is coming from someone calls himself Home Maggie Nation 580. He says, how does one... Huh? He says, how does one become a Nuwaubian?
Oh, wow. How does one become a Nuwaubian? That's a very broad answer, and I'll do our best. We'll do our best. I'll start by saying that our master teacher has been asked ever since he introduced the word Nuwaubian, Wu-nuwaupu, wu-nuwaup to the world, has been asked, what is the definition? And he has yet to answer that specifically. He has told us that what Nuwaupu is, or Wu-nuwaup. He's told us what Nuwaupu is. He's told us what a Nuwaubian is, indirectly. And I have to say that loosely, and then I'm going to explain. He explained to us that a Nuwaubian is a child of Nuwaupu, a student of Nuwaupu. That Nuwaupu is a science of information that deals with facts and reality. It deals with right knowledge, right wisdom, right understanding, and sound right reasoning. And a Nuwaubian is a student of this science of information called Nuwaupu that is based on facts and reality. No assumptions, no opinions, no belief, no lies. When the question is asked, how do one become a Nuwaubian? It is a indeed way of life that you live, and as you live in time, you gradually transfer and overcome and become. Let me back it up. In life, in order to become anything, you have to overcome certain things. Everyone got that? In order to become, you have to overcome. Give you an example. In order to become a senior in high school, you have to overcome your junior years. In order to become a junior in high school, you have to overcome your sophomore years. And in order to become a sophomore in high school, you have to overcome your freshman years. At some point in time, as a freshman, you're given tests. And those tests graduate you from being a freshman to being a sophomore. And you have a test in Ms. Johnson class, and Mr. Stevens class, and Mr. Rothschild class, and your Mrs. Jenkins class, and music appreciation class. You have so many various tests in so many various classes that graduate you from that one grade to the next grade, or from that one degree to the next degree. This is one of the reasons why our master teacher explained to us that in all of these schools of thought that he had given us, he took us for a long walk on a short path. The long walk was the amount of information we had to cover. The short path was the amount of time. So he said, as a master teacher, I have to strategically figure out how to get a whole lot of abstract information in our head by giving us 10 years worth of information every year that goes by. By no means am I speaking about the people that has been here for all of the years he's been teaching. I'm not speaking specifically about them, though not excluding them either. It is also incumbent upon the people that just came across our doctrine yesterday. Because to take on our science of information as Nuwaupians and to become a Nuwaupian, it is the actual practical application of our science of information as you continue to live it, read it, study it, teach it, etc., etc., etc. And in time and on time, you gradually graduate from being under the spell of Kingu. You gradually graduate from being a believer. You gradually graduate from being a religious-minded person. You gradually graduate from being a ignorant person, and I don't mean ignorant as far as casting stones, calling names. The word ignorant simply means to ignore the facts. Ignore, ignorant. And if you're ignoring facts, you're living a lie. And if you're living a lie, then you're living a doctrine of the devil, and hell awaits you. So our thing says, in time, once you have enough information and outformation logged into your head, it in time transforms you from a believing being to a knowing being. And according to our doctrine, Wu-nuwaupu, the very first attribute that a God possesses is knowing something. Because there's a statement